Hey, this is Chris, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about NFTs, or non-fungible tokens. I'm going to be discussing what they are, why they've become so popular recently, and things to consider before you invest in them. So NFTs, or non-fungible tokens, are all the rage at the moment in the crypto investing world. They're basically a way to delineate ownership usually around a digital asset. That digital asset could be an artwork, it could be a meme, it could be a digital basketball court card, but basically it's a way of separating ownership of unique digital assets and holding that information or storing it on the blockchain. Now, the reason they have become very popular recently, particularly in the crypto world, is that there have been some huge transactions around digital assets bought in this way. So a couple of great examples were a digital artwork that was purchased for almost 90 million Australian dollars recently, and digital basketball cards, which have become very, very popular, particularly around the start of 2021. People are paying huge sums of money for essentially a digital version of the old school basketball cards with their favorite players and their favorite moments in history. Now, there are a few things that you should consider before you decide to buy a NFT. There would be two main ones that I would be thinking about, which is, first of all, is the underlying asset that you're investing in going to be seen to be valuable in the future? So I would give the example of, let's say, wine or vintage cars or Pokemon cards. Now, these days, because there's a bit of history behind these collectibles, people do attribute some sort of value to them, and there is some way of working out what are the more valuable ones and the less valuable ones. But ultimately, as a class of asset that you can invest in, there is some value there. But at the moment, NFTs are so new that I don't think people are quite certain what type of NFTs, if any, will be valuable in the future. Will it be the digital basketball cards? Will it be the digital art? Will it be digital music? Maybe it's all of them. Maybe it's none of them. But the first question you need to be asking is, will the underlying asset that I'm investing in have value in the future? Now, wine is a great example where in the past, before people collected wine, it would have had to take a bit of foresight to actually imagine that people might want to collect valuable wines in the future. But it's also possible that the wines you collected in the past, even with the foresight that they were going to be valuable in the future, weren't the right wines to collect. So the second thing you need to consider is, if you get your asset class right, and let's say it's digital basketball cards or digital art, the second question is the actual underlying things I'm buying going to be the ones that people put value on in the future? Because just like vintage cars or wine or other collectibles, there are ones that people put a lot of value on, and there's people that put zero value on. So for instance, old wines that have gone off might be worth nothing these days, even if they were famous wines back in their day. And this, I think, is the second difficult thing of picking NFTs, is not only do you need to get the asset right, you also need to get the underlying investments right. And unless you get both of those right, the chances are the value in the future could be zero. Now, ultimately, this does set up a great risk reward, because if you are the person that is not only able to identify the right asset class, so let's say it's digital art, and you're also able to identify the right artist, essentially the Van Gogh or the Picasso of digital art, then absolutely there could be a fantastic return opportunity out there. But what it takes is unique knowledge of that particular asset class. So if it is digital art, you need to be the person that knows more than everyone else in digital art and has the vision of what people will value in the future in order to get it right. I've seen a lot of people discuss online the idea of, well, you don't even need to get all of that right. You can just buy something randomly, and if this whole asset class increases in value, then you'll succeed. I actually think this is probably the wrong strategy with NFTs, and the reason is, with collectibles, it tends to be that a very small number of collectibles have a lot of value, and then there are a lot that have very little value. And I think the same will happen in the NFT world. There'll be a few things in the future within each asset class that people put a huge amount of value on, like those famous artists of today or those famous wines that people collect, but there'll be a much larger group that are basically worthless. And so that comes to my final tip, which is, if you are going to invest in NFTs, one, only put in what you'll lose, but two, put in an investment into something that you actually personally enjoy, whether it's from the social status you get from bragging to your friends or the enjoyment you get from looking at something each day, because ultimately it may be that they're worth nothing and the only enjoyment you get is that personal satisfaction rather than any financial gain in the future. And that would be my tips on investing in NFT.